All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our afternoon webinar on SOLIDWORKS PDM and getting the most out of your searches. I want to start off by just showing a few really ugly pictures here. These are images I think some of us are accustomed to seeing from years ago. You know, we've got the obligatory guy, usually it's a guy with the paper strewn everywhere, and it's his filing system. He can find anything in there, and and that's great for him. But when we're working in today's collaborative environment, we need to be able to find things from other people, find things from other departments, find things from other locations. And this is where searching really becomes super important. And so, this guy moved out of his office and got a new job and is now, filing everything appropriately. And you got these nice sliding file cabinets, and they're great. But you still have to know how to find where they are. What cabinet is it in? What tray is it in? What folder is it in? And so on and so forth. And then, we get to the digital world and we start putting everything out on the network. And this poor user, I just went and Googled some Windows Explorer map drives and just came across this one. And I do get to see a lot of user computers. I've never seen anybody about to run out of the alphabet when they're mapping drives, but you can only imagine trying to find things when you've got 10, 15 different locations out on your network. And this is a little extreme what you're seeing on the screen, but I can't tell you how many times I've been to users and they've got 2 and 3 different locations that they have to go and search for documents. And so we come in, we put in SOLIDWORKS PDM and get everything under control, and they still have a difficult time finding things inside of PDM. So that's the focus of this webinar, is to show you how to better utilize as an administrator your searches, and better utilize your searches as a user. So how to build searches for various groups and users in your organization, and then how to go find things when you have to do the searching yourself. So the roadmap we're going to take today is we'll learn how to build a search card. Now, those of you who are administrators, this should be very familiar. Hopefully you will have some really great tips and tricks that you get out of this, though. Once you have the search card built, then we want to define columns. And if you've never done anything with columns, you're missing out. Columns are awesome. And as a little side note, columns to me do a lot in replacing Excel spreadsheets and reports. So keep that in mind when you see me setting everything up. Once you have all that done, then you need to let those who need the search card have access to it. And combining these 3 items, you can then create functional search cards. So if you have functional groups, certain departments, certain areas in your organization, and only these areas need to be able to search on certain documents or certain locations, whatever criteria you want to define. These 3 things combined together will help you generate that functional group search card. And then after that, we'll take a look at some of the great tips and tricks you can take away from today and how to run searches. So building search cards, it really all just boils down to the card editor. Building a search card is nothing more than working with normal data cards through your card editor. So let's go ahead and get started on this. And the scenario I'm going to take here is a tooling search. So we have a tool maker user. It's a very small vault, so I've only got a couple users in here. And I've got a tooling area in my vault. We'll go take a look at that area real quick. All right, so there's a tooling folder in here, and I want my users to be able to search inside of this folder. All right, and you can see some of the data that's in here. It's very simple data, very simple workflow. They don't really have revisioning needs, but they've got some data card information that is very specific to them. that we don't really deal with anywhere else. So how do we go to accommodate these users? So again, it all comes down to the search card and building that search card. So let's come to our card editor. I just love when it does this. Give me 1 second. This drives me nuts. I got to have these in a line. All right. So when I build a search card, I basically start with a brand new card. And from there, what I will do is I will pull from other cards. So we were talking about the tooling group. So let's just go open up their card. So I've got the tooling groups card here, and the information that may be important to them is maybe this information down here, this built and purchased information. So we're just going to copy and paste this down into the card. We'll take the image. The images are good. If you use images on different cards and people begin to identify different areas based on these images, pass them along, reuse them as much as possible. Many of you have heard the blueberry term mentioned, and once people hear the word blueberry and they see what it does and how to work with it, they start to identify with that little blue icon. All right, so I've got these in here, and maybe the document number, and we'll say the description. All right, let's get the coloring in here. The blue, we only really need that on the data card because it's letting users know that these fields are configuration specific. On searches, there's no need for configuration specific. We just can leave those as is. All right, so this kind of gets me started, but what else would I want to pull in here? Well, I probably want to pull from an existing search card, mainly the complete search. So this is a search card that is delivered with every kind of default installation of PDM, and if I've done your implementation, you all have access to this. So the great thing about this card is it gives you a good starting point for all of these different areas, and then you can start pulling them bits and pieces that you may need. And what we really want in here is where do we want to look, the file name, and then the some of these toggle options down here. So let me get all this moved out the way so we don't clutter up on top of each other. All right. Yeah. All right. And you will, when you start new, you will see this control must be connected, and include subfolders. So what it needs is just the variable name here, and get that. Just pick one real quick. All right. All right, and hang on a second. Bear with me 1 second. This is a bit tedious, but it's kind of good for y'all to see what all goes on in here. All right, and for some reason those did not come over correctly. Let's do this one more time. Not the first time I've seen these misbehave. Wow. These are being really bad. All right. I'll leave those off for just a second. We'll come back to those in a minute. All right. So then what you want to do is get all this kind of structured the way that you want. All right, and the one thing that I will make sure you get from building the search card is you want to go wide, not tall. If you go really tall with your search card, when you go to run your search, those of you that have done it, if you recall, you have 3 panes in your search, so you want to leave as much room as you possibly can. Let me go try from one of my other cards real quick. Hopefully these will behave. No, they're not behaving. Oh, hang on. All right. Yes, I know. Another tip, right up here in the top right, don't forget to set this to a search card. If it's a file card, it wants everything attached to a variable. it needs to be a search card, and now when I drop these in, they will behave. They don't really need to tie to a variable. Apologize about that. All right, so get everything positioned where you want. I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to make my card look exactly the way I normally would. I'd spend a lot of time usually doing this and making sure everything looks really good, but for time's sake, I'm just going to leave everything kind of a little haphazard. We'll go ahead and finish cleaning this up. All right. Got these lined up. Make sure they're not overlapping. Okay, so I've got everything on there that I may want to start with. Make sure you give your card a name. So this is the tooling, not tolling card. There we go. All right, and then save it, and okay. And now it's going to be available for everyone. Now that variable missing, for some reason, I just have to click through some of these fields that I copied over, and once you do that, then you won't get that message again. So if you're going to copy paste from the complete search, you just kind of have to click through all of these, and then just kind of let them refresh their properties. Okay. All right. So that's typically building a card. Now, a lot of times I will reuse from lots of various cards. So here's another one, this manager search. If you notice, it's got a project number field here, and you have to key in the project number. Well, I've got another template card, and on that template card, I've got a project pull down. I'm going to copy that down here. Make sure you get right on it. There we go. We'll just kind of slide it up underneath just to test it. So instead of deleting that, we're going to leave that right there to test it. But what I wanted to point out is that I took this field from a template card. So you can build these search cards from lots of different locations. It doesn't have to be strictly from a search. A lot of times I'll pull from folder locations as well. Okay. The other thing that you always want to check is that fields that might have been read-only. So this EC number field, if you notice, it is read-only. If I were to copy-paste that onto, say, this manager search, you notice that read-only follows suit. Well, it doesn't really help to have a read-only field on a search card. You want people to be able to enter values there. All right, so let's save all this, and now we've got our search card defined. The next step will be to set up our columns. So in the screenshot there, you can see the columns highlighted in the middle, and you can also see where I've got the three panes of every typical search. You got the search criteria at the top, results in the middle, and then data card preview and so on at the bottom. So this is why you always want to go as wide as you can go instead of tall when you're building your search cards. So let's go take a look at how to set up columns. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward, but it's not something a lot of people do. So to set up columns, what you want to do is go into your admin tool, and under columns you want to create a new column here. Now I've already got one started. I just called it tooling. Make sure up in the top right you set it to search result. Give it a name. I'm creating this as a functional set, so I'm going to name it based on the group here. The one thing about search columns is you have to build all of these values in manually. So if, let's just remove one of these. Let's say I forget to put the name in there, and that's this is the column set that I have. When I go to run this, you're going to have some really oddball results. So let's go take a look at our search real quick. So when I go run a search, all right, maybe I just want to find everything that's purchased. All right, run that, and now I've got my search in here. Okay. All right, now if you notice, I've got the default column set under here. How do we define the column set? So you do have to exit out and come back into your search tool. So to define your column set, select your search card, and right over here to the right, just make sure you're kind of clicked in the gray area. You have to define which column do you want to use for the search. All right, so we're going to use our tooling search now instead of our instead of the default one. Now notice I'm coming over here to the right when before I came up under here under tools. Two different locations to get searches run. When I'm testing, I usually do like to use this side over here because it lets me pop in and out of here very, very quickly. And I'll explain what these do a little differently in just a minute. So if we do purchased items and run this, okay, did I not save it? Let me make sure I save it. There we go. Let's try this one more time. Okay. So this is why I like to use this one, is because I can pop in and out while I'm testing these, and then it should pick up the new. There we go. So now it's got that new column set. Notice it kind of looks really odd without the name over here, and this is kind of what I wanted to impart on you, is that you have to build this column set from scratch with everything in here. So what you're going to need to do is make sure you pull in a lot of these top variables up here. The name is the one that I left out of here, and you can see it popped in at the bottom. We just need to move it up to the top. Up at the top here, you can drag out these columns to kind of define the default width that your users will see. They can obviously adjust them as needed, but this is where you would set the default width. You can also numerically key it in here if you want to do that as well. Okay. So once you're in here, then like I said, just pop in and out of my tooling card, rerun your search, and now at least we have our name in here, and all of these are supposedly purchased. All right, well, if they're purchased, maybe we want to see who the vendor is. So down here we've got a DeWalt vendor. I want to see who the vendor is in this list, and this is where columns really become wonderful. Anything that's on the data card can be used on this, the columns. Somewhere in here is a V. There we go. So I can add my vendor in here. I don't really want it towards the end. I want it right after the description. All right. And then, again, just pop in and out. Find everything that's purchased. And now we've got our vendor. And there we go. All right, so now I'm beginning to build kind of a report. And like I said at the outset, those of you that use a lot of spreadsheets to manage reports, building your column sets here can a lot of times replace those spreadsheets. And here's a great little tip on to that effect, is if you don't use this pull down over here and instead use the tools menu up here, this will launch a separate interface, and now when I run purchased, this will show me everything that's purchased, and in fact we can now see that there are vendors missing. Well, this is great, but I need to output this to Excel. Great, you've got an open search results Excel button, and it generates your Excel document. All right, and now you've got something to work with. All right. So this is a great way to generate these Excel documents, not maintain them. Maintain everything just right here in your search results. Okay. All right, we'll come back to some more of the differences between the two in a minute. All right, now I've kind of got everything set up. I could continue adding to this tooling card. All right, and add to the columns in here. So basically, anything that's on the data card that I would care about. Maybe I want to see what project it is. Maybe the document number. I actually built one for a customer last year, and on their tooling, we created about 3 or 4 different tooling searches. Lathe, mill, and a couple other ones. And on there, we would have the tool type, the tool holder, tool diameters, and the gauge length, along with their particular ID numbers. And the really great thing about this was they had thousands and thousands and thousands of historical AutoCAD data with block attributes in them, and we were able to migrate all of that data in. It populated the data cards, and now we have a very, very vibrant and search result, because we can now go search on all of this data from years and years and years of design data. Okay, but here's the one thing that I can't do right now. So let me get out of the search tool. So right now, let's say I'm off somewhere else. I'm in the designs, and I'm out here, and I run my tooling search. Notice right up here in the address bar, it's just picking up whatever folder I'm in. Well, this is a functional group. They're only allowed to work in certain areas. All right, so I'm going to force them to only search a certain location. How do we do that? Well, back in the tooling search, make sure you're clicked into the gray area here, so you can see the search properties. Down at the bottom, you have something called default values. So what this does is it sets the default values for any of the variables that we have on here. And this dialog's a little bit tricky, so you kind of have to pay attention to what you're doing and sometimes figure out what's what. But what I want to do is I want to define the this search folder path. You do want to put in the full path. Mountain scooter. Obviously my typing skills are not that great this afternoon. And then we want to force them to the tooling. Now, I've done this where I took that part out because it was the root of the vault, and I just had tooling. And then when you run it, all you see is tooling. I kind of like to see the entire path so I see where I am all the way in there. All right. Now, a couple others in here that are real finicky, and those are search in all versions and display files. Display folders. These are two that I like to sometimes turn on and off by default. How do you turn these on and off by default? This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So search in all versions, you have to come down here and find search previous versions and then set it to a 0. The variables for the toggles are 0 or 1, 0 being off, 1 being on. Okay, so we're going to make sure that's toggled off, and then also the other one is the folders, which is find folders. We're going to make sure that's turned off as well. All right, and then we've got our search card almost fully set. Go save it, and then rerun it again. This time, notice again, I'm in the Designs Project Design Data folder. This time, though, when I go to Tooling Card, it defaults to the tooling, and it turns off searching in all versions, because a lot of times, say something like the vendor may change from version to version. All right, and if I do this without all versions, I get 1. If I search all versions, I should get more. There we go. So anyway, trust me, it works. I don't remember what I had for the various versions, but this little guy right here, this can get people very, very varying results, because it's searching older versions, and data card values can change from version to version. And a lot of times you want to just make sure that you're searching only the latest version. So you want to make sure that's turned off. Okay. All right. The last thing about the search card, after you've built the search card and set up the columns, is defining who can actually run it. And there's 2 places where you can set this. All right. One place is in the groups. So if I go into the tooling group and come down to the search card node, then I can just come over here and turn that on. Or the other place is on the data card. If you're in the data card over here on the right, groups that may use the form, I just turn on tooling here while I'm doing everything else. And then the search card is pretty much set up and ready to go. Okay. All right. So building the search card, setting up columns, and then defining permissions. Those are the three key things that you want to do when you're building search cards for your different groups. All right, so the last bit, and we'll spend a little bit of time in here, is actually running your searches. So a lot of different things that you can do in searches, and I want to go through a few of my different search cards and show you what we can do in here. All right, so let's look at my manager search card first, and I've done a few of these where the drafting manager, engineering manager, director of engineering, whoever it may be, they need to search on very different criteria than the rest of the organization. So they may need to know EC information, engineering change information, as well as project information. If they assign drafters and assign engineers on the data cards, who's assigned to what, and there's just a lot of information that can be gotten in here. So let's take a look at a few things that this card in particular could do for somebody. So I can search for different workflows. Okay, I can obviously search for different file names and descriptions. Go want to put in engineering change numbers and who the assigned drafter is. Okay, and what does all this mean? Well, let's just go find a few engineering change documents here, and this will make a little more sense once you see the engineering change data card. So on my EC data card, and I'm saying engineering change and EC. I know you all have various names for your EC processes, ECRs, ECOs, ECNs, DCNs. I've heard so many different acronyms. It all boils down, it's the engineering change process. Well, we can take that process and put it all on a data card utilizing, say, an XML document. Okay, instead of a Word document. This will be another webinar. I've gotten away from Word and Excel, and I don't strictly going to try to use these XML documents, but on here I can define who's my lead engineer, for instance, or safety engineer. What kind of conditions are there for these documents? All right, what documents are affected, and engineering, manufacturing notes, and then maybe if I'm a drafting manager, who am I assigning it to? How many hours are they going to be given for this? And then move on from there. Okay, and then everything just updates automatically on the XML side. But I want to be able to search on all this and categorize some of this information. So my column set, if you notice, I've got the state, who the drafter is, who the lead engineer and the safety engineers are. So I can quickly get a snapshot of what's going on with my documents. So let's recycle this, and I want to find all of my engineering change documents. So there's always different ways to do this. In my particular vault, all the engineering change documents are EC- and then 4 numbers.xml. So I could do something like EC and then XML, and then that will return all of my engineering change documents that I have in the system. All right, and it's a small vault, so it's a small list, but right away I'm able to see who all of my different assignments are. All right, do people have it checked out? What's the description, and so on. Well, what if I don't want to see the ECs that are completed and implemented? Great. So here's a great little tip. This is where I like to put in this variable dialog in here, and what this allows you to do is to search on any variable in the system. Now, it can get a little hairy if you're not accustomed to looking at variables, and whoever implemented your database decided to cryptographically name everything instead of making it kind of make sense, human sense. So what I want to do is I want to find anything that's an engineering change document where the state does not equal to implemented. All right, so right now I've got this row of documents and this EC implemented is shown. When I run this time, well, why is it there? Well, I just mentioned this a few minutes ago. Right here, search in all versions. This document at one point was not implemented. So at one point it wasn't implemented, so it does satisfy the search criteria. Turning this off will now remove it because the latest version of it is sitting at implemented. Now it's removed from the search. So knowing some of the nuance like this will really help you better understand how to use these searches. And by the way, here's the project pull down right here. So this pull down, instead of me having to key in the project number, I could provide them with a pull down. And so I usually will stick it on somewhere, test it out, and then remove out the old variable and slide it up into place. Okay. All right. So let's recycle this real quick, and let's take a look at a few other things that I might want to do in here. So maybe I want to find where all of my documents are purchased. All right. And I get a nice long list, all right, but I also want to find the ones that are missing a vendor. So we can see over to the right here, I've got a list of documents, and some of them have a vendor, some of them don't. Well, I can scroll through here and find them pretty quick, but what if I just want to filter this out? Well, this is where we can begin building this search criteria here, all right, and if I leave this blank, what it's going to do is it's only going to give me files with a blank vendor. So if I put in a variable where text contains nothing, so just leave it blank, it basically will show me documents with a blank value. So now I have a list of files that are purchased with no vendor. Probably want to go get those updated so they have vendors in them if you're putting that kind of information in here. All right, now one thing, I've been using the built-in search tool here. I don't particularly like that search tool when I'm running this type of search. So let me get out of this. I like using the one over here, and let me show you why. One of the things that you get out of here that you don't get out of the other one. Just put all this back in real quick, is down here at the bottom is a list of number of files found and also how long it takes. The number of files, a lot of times I want to know when I'm running different searches, am I getting a different number of files? That can be very important sometimes. And also the 0.2 seconds, if you're in a very large vault, and we'll talk about those in just a minute, you want to know how long it takes for these to get returned. If you're doing any kind of internal troubleshooting, if it takes 5-10 seconds to return 1,000 documents, okay, I'm all right with that. But if it takes a minute to return 20 documents, you've got some problems to take a look at there. So we've got 89 this time. Now let's go put in our vendor where text contains nothing. This time we went from 89 to 79. All right, and then from here, here's our good old Excel friend. Now I can dump this out, and I now have a list of all the documents that are missing the vendor. Well, what if I want just the opposite? Add in an asterisk right there. And now I get a list of everything that has a vendor, okay? Or at one point had a vendor, is my guess, is what this last one is. That, let's see if this works here. So run that. There we go. Nope, there we don't go. So there's something going on with this one I'd have to take a look at. All right, but again, running the search tool out of your tools menu opens up a separate window. Those of you with dual screens, which I hope all of you have at least dual screens, put these on 2 different screens and then sit there and run searches and do the rest of your work inside of PDM. All right. So let's take a look at, I've got a couple things I want to point out in here for everyone. So searching in fields is a wildcard by default. Okay, so by default you're going to have a wildcard, so you don't actually have to put in an asterisk. All right, now if you put in multiple values in multiple fields, it becomes an AND statement. And remember, AND statements are going to be more limiting. OR statements are going to give you a larger return set. So let's take a look at what do I mean by that. Nope, not that one. Let's see, do I still have it open? No, I don't. All right, we'll just go run a new one here. So if I go to the complete search, actually no, let me go back to my manager. I like my manager search. I want to find everything that has the word switch in it. All right, so I run a search for switch, and I now have 4 documents that have the word switch in them. Well, what if I want to find everything that has switch? Let me go back up here. Hang on, run it one more time. There we go. Switch, but it also has stop in it. So if I do, now I have an OR value going on between there. So if you put in 2 words with a space between them, you've created an OR statement. All right. So there's 4 returned. If I do stop or stop or switch, now I've got now I get this extra document right here that's got stop in it. All right. Well, that's the OR portion of it. If I go to another field and put in a value here, now it becomes an AND statement. Let me make sure I can find what I want. There we go. All right. And switch and stop won't find me anything, but if I do box and stop, then I'll get this particular document because we have stop in the description and box in the file name. So that's kind of how you want to think of these. So multiple fields are going to be AND statements. If you do everything in one field with a space, it'll be an OR statement. Okay. Asterisks. So I mentioned that searching in fields is a wildcard by default. All right. Most of us know that wildcards are represented by an asterisk. And you don't have to use asterisks when you're just doing fairly simple searches. But if you use an asterisk, it can actually do some things for you. So you can see I've got a sample here. 1.doc asterisk will actually be a faster search result than 1.doc. Now, is this a big deal? In a really, really large vault, if your searches are a little slow, then yes, this could be a very big deal and it could help out a lot. But for general public use, it's not hugely important. Okay, but it is a really good way to also troubleshoot your search speed. Also, here's a sample 123 in the name field will return part 123 block and 123 block. But if I do 123 asterisks, it only searches 123 and then anything after it. So you can also use the asterisk to better instruct the search to only search before or after the string that you're putting in. All right. And then here's another one. This is one that not a lot of people may know about, the history tab or using any variable. These are kind of equated to the Google search of just show me everything. So what do I mean by the history tab and any variable? Let's come back in here. These you do have to find from the complete search. And on the complete search, you should have a history tab up here. All right, and in the history, you can set this to show to search for anything with the word stop in it in the version comments, the revision comments, state change comments, or state cane comments, can't type there. Or maybe I just want to limit it to file names, or card variables. So maybe I want to search for everything that has the word stop in it in a card variable. That right there just became a Google search. Search everything on every data card if the word stop, there it is in the data card somewhere. Okay, now that right there becomes really, really useful, because combining that with other things like workflow state, so show me anything that is in pending with the word stop in it, I now filter it down and get exactly what I need. Okay. The other method of this is to come over to variables, and right under here you have something called any variable, and here you can just again put in that word and then search, and it'll essentially show you the exact same thing. But the history tab over here is about the same as this any variable. The history tab though is kind of a big tab, so if I'm in a specific search, I may not have room to put that history, but I do have room to use this any variable and get this same information. Okay. All right. And then the last thing, let me close out of everything that I have here. The last thing that I have here is desktop shortcuts. Those of you that follow our 3-Minute Thursday videos, you may have seen I did one a couple months back for this, but desktop shortcuts are really, really great. Let me let's just get to Windows Explorer here real quick. All right, and I've got a desktop shortcut here called, where are you? EC Initiated Documents. So let me just run this, and wow, look at that. It ran my search for me, okay, and returned everything straight from a desktop shortcut. So what exactly is going on with that? Well, if you look at the properties for this, all right, and there's a little more to this than right here, but these are very easy to set up. You're basically just pointing to the search exe, so it's the search executable that runs our external searches. You just need to tell it what vault do I need to go in, what saved search do I run. So you have to have a saved search to run, and then there's a couple other switch options that you can put in here. So if I come in, and you'll notice I've got open EC, so maybe I have to review and take care of engineering change requests. So instead of coming in here and having to run this, all I need to do is go to my desktop every morning or every hour, whenever, run this search, and here's my to-do list. Very, very simple. So this is searching for all of the EC XMLs that are not implemented. Okay, so this is everything that's active. It gives me a good idea of what's going on with my engineering change process and the throughput on everything. Okay. All right, and so that's all the tips and tricks. There's probably lots of other little tips and tricks that users find, because you guys find all the little nooks and crannies that us AEs don't always get to play with day in and day out. Okay. All right, and so that's everything I've got to show you on making your searches much more powerful for your PDM implementation. And now what I want to do is give me a second to take a look at the questions. If you have any questions, now would be a good time to go ahead and put them in, and just give me a second to read through these. So I've got one gentleman asking if this is a new package. No, SOLIDWORKS PDM Professional is the kind of replacement package for Enterprise PDM. They just renamed it for 2016. The one thing, and this is a good time to point this out, anybody who's running PDM Works Workgroup, It is going to be retired after the 2017 version, so you have this current 2016 and next year's 2017 version to use it. When 2018 comes out, it will no longer be available on the Installation Manager. The good news is that PDM Standard has already been introduced. We're already implementing it in a lot of our PDM Works customers. And a lot of the search functionality that I just showed you here, you'll be able to use that same functionality with PDM Standard. There are some nuanced differences, but for the most part, you'll be able to build search cards and go from there. And PDM Standard is free for anybody running SOLIDWORKS Professional or Premium. All right, let's see. Can you do nested searches using search strings? Let me get out of my PowerPoint here. So nested searches using search strings, I'm not 100% sure how to answer that without talking to you, but one of the things that you can do for nested searches is start out at a very, very generic high level and then start fine-tuning. So basically with this search right here, I'm going to turn off search all versions, but give me everything. So I've got, in my vault I've got 558 documents and then 29 folders. Well, I don't want to see the folders, so I'm going to start refining my search. What if I only want to see the data that is under editing? All right, so now I'm down from 550 to 454. And what about, well, now I only want to see things that are checked out by Mike. All right, so now I'm down to the 70 documents that Mike has checked out, and if I wanted to, I could begin to go even deeper into here and say, well, show me only the things that Mike has checked out that are purchased items, so that we can go ahead and get moving on ordering those. As far as nested strings, I think that's about all you can do. The only other area I might could answer you here is that with the variable search, you do have and or options here, so you can build or statements underneath here. So show me everything that's Mike is the author, or Dave. I don't think I'm going to get any results here. No, maybe I got some. Yeah, so where the author is Mike or Dave, and because I put it under an or statement. Okay, hopefully that kind of answers you. Craig, if you got any specifics on that, just ring me up. We'll look into it. Not sure about what about X and not Y in the same field. Might need to explain that a little better. And the desktop shortcut information, best thing I can do, give me 1 second. I'll show you where you can get the video for that, but I can email it out as well. Let's answer this last questions here. So a little off topic, concept work before a project is issued. Can files be moved and renamed after a project and part numbers are issued? Absolutely. That's the beautiful thing about PDM Professional and Standard, is that once you put data into PDM, you're going to be able to move things around and rename them and not have to go through the whole machination of doing the SOLIDWORKS Explorer or Pack and Go renaming. So yeah, absolutely you can do that. Is there any nuance in how you manage your conceptual work? Yeah, there probably is. So if it's something that we need to help you with on implementation, just ring us up on that. Hang on 1 second. So talked about the desktop shortcut. If you go to our homepage and just click on this Practical Precision blog, if you just come down here, it was many months ago. If you search in the blog search down here, just put in the word search. It should come up as one of the top ones Yeah, here it is right here. So 3-Minute Thursday, EPDM desktop search favorite icon, and I've got a nice video here that you can watch on how to do this. Okay. All right. Leave this open for a second for any other questions. Yep, that looks like all the questions we have. I appreciate everybody taking an hour out of their afternoon. If you have any questions about this webinar, you can always get a hold of me, steve.o@tpm.com. Many of you know me already, but if you can't get me, always get anybody at TPM and just ask for Steve and it'll get to me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have about this webinar and searching. And that's all I have. Everybody have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time.